If you are listening to this podcast, it means you are searching for someone who understands you, someone who gets you. You are yearning to be understood and to belong. Welcome to the Someone Gets Me podcast, where we help smart, talented, and sensitive people navigate an often insensitive world. Let's welcome your host, ambassador, author, speaker, and mentor, Diane Allen. Diane has the experience and knowledge to educate and inspire, as she has been there and understands your unique intensities and their challenges.
Hi, everybody. It's Diane from Someone Gets Me. And today I have an interview person for you that you are going to love. Now, some of you came to our webinar where you heard Don Ollsin teaching with me about herbs and all kinds of wonderful things for gifted people. But today we're going to have a dive-in interview with him about who he is as a person and what drives him and how he's negotiated this unbelievably weird world. And he has made it into these great things he's done. This man is a pioneering educator. He practices as an herbal elder. You know, like that takes years and skill and time. How amazing is that? He has written books and he teaches courses. And he started this whole journey back in 1969, working in a restaurant. Isn't that cool how he started somewhere and has created this amazing healing practice? He devotes all of his energy to promoting the value of herbal medicine. And I even hear he makes some of his own herbal things. And so I'm sure we can hear about some of his concoctions he makes. He runs intensive training programs to really help people. He's taught in colleges, he runs his own programs, and he really is an ambassador for herbal healing and natural health instead of always being into the intervention side of things. He is in Canada, and he has an amazing space with this really cool house, and he also empowers people. He likes to help them understand that you too can heal yourselves using herbs and using other energy systems that are holistic to your body. So just because someone says you're sick doesn't mean that that's the end of the road. There are solutions that can complement any life. So Don is here with us today. I have a bunch of questions for him. And by the end of the show, you're going to want to check out all the things he can do for you. So welcome, Don, to the Someone Gets Me podcast.
Hi, Diane. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You're welcome. It's so cool to have you here because I really am drawn to the work that you're doing. So I'd like to have you just share with all the listeners for a little while about how you got into this. Like I read all about starting in that restaurant with the vegetarian chef, and on your website, it's a beautiful story of your journey. And all I could picture was this young person's like spark getting lit about, curiosity, and then just following this trail. So tell us a little bit about that journey and kind of what's inspired you.
Well, like you were saying about the waking up and discovering you're a bit different. So mine happened in around grade 5 or something. I was in school, like regular school, and they were teaching the periodic table, and they were saying, the traditional people, they weren't very smart. They thought there were only 4 elements. And I all of a sudden woke up, like I was like in the classroom. I went, my God, where am I? I'm in the wrong classroom. How did I get here? And like I knew nothing about the 4 elements or any of that kind of stuff. But I went into this altered state for about 5 minutes where I was like awake and going, oh my God, where am I? And then I went back to sleep again. But it was like, I remember very vividly going, oh my God, they're not stupid. The elements are really, earth, air, fire, water. Those are like vitally important. What do you mean they were stupid? And so that's kind of was my first awakening. And then when I was about 15, my sister was older than me and she was babysitting me, and she came to the car babysitting me. She was looking after me. We were out roller skating with her girlfriends and stuff. And I was sitting in the car waiting for them. And also she came up to the car and looked in the window and looked at me and said, what are you doing, meditating? And again, this was not a word in our family vocabulary, but it went through me like a wave of bliss or something. I went, what does that mean, meditate, And so, and then 5 years later, I found myself, or 10 years later, I found myself in India meditating 6 hours a day, It's like, and back to that restaurant. That restaurant was a vegetarian restaurant ran by a meditation group. and I would live and work there. And I would work all day in the kitchen, and I'd go upstairs and meditate. And they served herbal teas, and they had a tiny little bookstore, just one shelf of books. And they had this book there called Back to Eden by Jethro Kloss. And it was one of the first herbals in North America. And it was a hardcover. I still have my original copy, and I bought the book, and the rest is history, as they say.
Wow, how amazing is that? So tell us a little bit about what you did once you started learning.
Well, I sought out teachers right away. I've always been a great believer in having a teacher. And I'm not saying that for myself, but I love learning directly from another teacher. So there was a man traveling around North America named Dr. John Christopher, and he's kind of famous, and he's like the Wizard of Oz. He was this incredible herbalist from Provo, Utah, and he would go around teaching herbs, and he was the one who taught so many of the people in my field, got them started in it. So he came to Vancouver, where I was, and I studied with him, and then through him I met other herbal practitioners. I met a Mohawk medicine woman, my first native teacher, who I've had a number of. But Norma was a Mohawk, but she lived on the West Coast with a Coast Salish man. And I met Norma, and I started working with her and studying with her. So that's kind of how that began.
Oh, that is beautiful. I love that. Following the people, like seeking the teachers and the mentors and the people who've like kind of walked before us. And I always think about all my native friends and walking the red road and their ancestors and calling in all of the power of all around us. So that's so cool. I love that. So tell me, or tell my listeners, I guess, about things that somebody could do to self-soothe themselves. If you're overexcitable or like stressed out and somebody just needs to kind of like decompress, and they don't really, maybe they're not, like I have a lot of clients they don't hear the word meditation, Don, and they go, oh, I don't do that. Like they think it's something that's weird.
Yeah. And I don't, it can be a formalized word. And like when I was sitting in that car meditating, I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but I was somehow tuning into something. So I think the simplest way, Diane, and it's so simple and so overlooked, and it's a two-way street. It's good for the trees as much as it's good for us. I do have a webinar that we'll plug coming up on the healing trees with a woman from the Ozarks, who's going to be me and her talking about trees from our areas, healing of trees. But even without knowing the medicinal aspects of trees, you can find a tree that you really resonate with, and you can go to that tree, and whatever way that you want to connect to it, you can connect with that tree and feel its solid, grounded, earthy energy. And potentially, if it's a big tree, it might be many years old. So, some of the trees that I tune into are 300 years old, 500 years old, 1,000 years old. Like, you got to have a lot of patience. You got to be really grounded to be around in one spot for that long. And so in our kinetic way of being frazzled and overexcited and anxious, then if we go to a tree and with all sincerity, I'm open and willing to be helped by this energy, then that will happen.
Oh, that's beautiful. I have a friend of mine, every time we're anywhere, she runs to the trees. She has to go check out all the trees. And I'm drawn to certain trees and also some certain plants. Like I even had my group out just the other day, and we were walking through this palm garden, and at the entrance has like a trellis, and it's a jasmine plant. But the stalk that comes up from the ground as it goes around the trellis is probably 8 inches around. Wow. And it's almost twisted, like it's probably been there like a long time, right? And I just want to touch that. And all my clients are looking at me. I'm like, can't you feel this energy of this plant, And I have a friend of mine that also is drawn toward trees, but I never really realized that was a neat self-soothing thing, but it does. And when I think about it, when you just said that, I'm like, yeah, I do that. And I didn't realize that.
Well, the interesting thing is that like I said, it's a two-way street, and many of these plants are also, prior to this culture, people talked to plants. Plants were sentient beings. They were, all my relations was literally all my relations. Everything was sentient and everything was in relationship. It wasn't us and them. It was like us. And so these trees of wondering why we as humans stop communicating with them and are ignoring them, basically, especially in the cities. My God, if you find a tree in the city at a bus stop or something, go over and touch it and say hi. And the poor thing, it's like struggling to get enough air into, it's ended up in this environment that's weird, like it's not its natural environment. But, that's the other side of the coin of you being the healer for the tree. But even if it's a tree in a park or a tree in the forest, and you connect with those trees, they're also usually, now, trees are like humans. Not all trees are social. Most are, but you'll get the odd one who's grumpy and just like a human being, just doesn't want to be in communication. But that's only happened to me once, I think. I'm going to warn people, because it's kind of a turnoff when you go to a tree after you've listened to somebody like me and the tree tells you to go away.
Right.
Don't bother me. I'm sleeping.
And it's funny, as sensitive, overexcitable people would probably be able to pick on that, even if they didn't realize they could or were.
Well, that's just what I'm saying, is that I think for the highly sensitive, they already know this. They know this. They know that the trees, something. They don't know, they can't put it into words, but they feel something. They feel, and that's one of the first things I treat. Is like, when you walk up to a tree, I'll tell you a really cute story. I was teaching, a woman was hired me to teach her individually, and we were in a coffee shop in Victoria. And, we talked about it. And I said, okay, let's go out and do an example of it. And so we walked up this tree, and I passed this giant Gary oak, must have been like 10 feet around. And it was in a yard, and they'd actually built a sidewalk around it instead of they made the sidewalk go around the tree. So I said, okay, the way we do this is, as we approach the tree, we start to feel its energy. Just like if we were going to approach a person we didn't know, we're going to be sensitively walking towards this tree. And as we move, we're going to move slowly into its energy field and feel it. So we're doing this, and this is like in a city street, and we're just kind of moving towards this tree. And all of a sudden, behind us comes this big guy and goes, "Hey, hi, how are you doing? So you've met Horatio, hey?" Wow. And he told us the story of this tree, Horatio, and how he showed us how they had bought the land and how they'd saved the tree and how they had these guide wires holding the things up and how everybody loved Horatio. And so, I don't know, it's just an example of so the moral of the story is that the way that I get people to try this is just to see a tree like, maybe 10, 15 feet away and already begin to tune into it before you get to it, and just start walking towards it and seeing how your energy changes as you get closer to it. And right away, this is like respecting its space and coming into its space carefully.
Right. And being, like you said, respectful and paying attention.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So have you ever worked with anybody who's like living from the neck up and they're only in their head and they're full of their intellect, and helping them kind of get in their body or feel things? Because I imagine some people would really resonate with getting into the energy of trees and connecting. And then I also imagine that some of the overexcitable people are so in their head and moving so fast that they may not be able to be aware because they haven't dropped down enough.
Totally. And so the good news about that is Ayurveda and dream body work both have a tool for that I recommend in my book. And that is, it's very simple, is just stop, see what you're seeing, hear what you're hearing, feel what you're feeling, touch something and feel what it feels like, smell what you're smelling, maybe you're still tasting something, taste it, and right away that'll bring you into your body. And stop that spinning, out of control, mental, disturbed state that people who are just from their head up get into. They're not. I just did an incredible guided walk for a group of songwriters here on Pender Island. They hired me to take them out on a nature walk for 2 hours during the weekend workshop. And, I said, okay, well, as you go up the trail, and it was a bit of a hike up, feel your body, feel gravitas, feel the weight of, you're going uphill, but don't just ignore that. Feel what that's, so getting into your body. Proprioception's a great one. people are in their heads. That means knowing how you body sense, how you feel in your body. And people in their heads aren't in contact with their body. So anything to bring them in contact, whether it's touch, smell, taste, feel.
Yes. And when you just did that exercise, when you got to the taste thing, I just drank some tea and I immediately keyed into it.
Yeah.
And then I remember, oh yeah, taste and olfactory, they're so strong, you know? And I pulled myself into my body really quickly just by when you said stop. And
Yeah.
that's the word I use, you know, and I teach people just, you know, when your brain starts going out of control, just stop.
Yeah.
The command will do it, and then take a few breaths and then start to, you know, assess wherever you are. So I forgot about the taste thing till you said that. I'm like, yeah, the tastes are really strong. You know, it's powerful.
Powerful. Yeah.
Very
Taste and
much.
smell.
Right. So you teach people herbalism things, right? Like you have a class?
Yeah, I have
What do you teach?
Pardon?
What do you teach in that online course?
Where?
What do you teach?
Oh, what? Well, it made me think of the tastes, which is really cool because I did my master's thesis on transferring my teachings face-to-face to online because I knew this was the future. And I was saying, how can, my thing is based on all this sensory information. So how am I going to do this? But it's very simple. Like, so I say, Diane, we're going to do a taste exercise and I want you to get 6 representations of taste: bitter, sweet, astringent, salty, etc. Now, put a piece of that salty kelp in your mouth and taste it. And I want you to meditate on that salty flavor. And I want you to tell me what you're experiencing. And so right away, because all plants and energetic systems like Ayurveda are based on tastes, because all the tastes represent certain elements. So salt, for example, is fire and water. So if somebody needs more fire and water, then salt is good for them. But if they already have too much fire in them, it's not good for them. So, but also going to an intuitive level, what I ask people after they've done the taste exercise, are you attracted to that or not attracted? 9 times out of 10, they're not attracted to it if it's not good for them.
Wow. So just within the courses, when people are learning things, they can also see what's really good for them as they go along because of what you're having them do.
Yeah, courses are very oriented at self-healing. And then if one chooses to heal others, friends, family, and if one chooses to go on professionally, it's a foundational course for my mentorship program. So then they can literally start working with people and helping people and get guidance from me.
That is amazing. That is really exciting that you're offering that kind of level of healing, because I teach my people all the time that 80% of our healing is not verbal, that it's not all about words, that it's energetic, that it's in being in nature, and that it has to do with the greater scope of the world, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you, because I think that understanding there's lots of different avenues, that there's not just one way to do it, or there's not just one thing. And you mentioned Dream Body and you mentioned Ayurveda. Will you explain a little bit about what those are in case there's listeners who don't know what those schools of thought are about, just briefly?
Yeah, well, we'll start with Ayurveda because that's the oldest one. It's 5,000-year-old unbroken system of healing that was developed in both India and China, because China and India had a lot of communication between each other. They call it traditional Chinese medicine in China, and in India they call it Ayurveda, but they were exchanging information back and forth through the centuries. Some friends of mine wrote a book called The Tao and the Dharma. So it's an unbroken system. Now, we had the sad affair of all the witches, which were basically a lot of the herbalists, were burnt at the stake, and their system of healing, which was very sophisticated, was kind of broken, whereas in India it wasn't broken. So you have this unbroken system that goes on that is nature-based. And so it's, like I said, based on the tastes. It's based on physical qualities of heavy, light, hot, cold, dry, wet. And the whole system's built up around those things. So it's a perfect system for people who are too much in their head, because it's is it heavy or not heavy? Is it light or is it not light? Is it dry or is it wet? Is it hot or is it cold? It's not a guessing game. It's just a very, you're overheated. What do? you go into cold water. It's pretty simple. You're cold, you dress warm. Like I'm laughing, but we are so sophisticated and so complex and so complicated that we forget that, people die of heart attacks jogging at noon in the hot sun. And in Ayurveda, they have constitutions. So they have a fire constitution. And the people that die of a heart attack at noon in the hot sun are of the fire constitution. That's not where they belong. They belong in a pool swimming laps where their body cools down while they're exercising.
Well, and I think that's really important, because people who live so in their head, and a lot of gifted people are so reinforced for their cognitive intelligence that they lose track of their bodies, like really completely, and wouldn't even realize that there's hot and there's cold, and there's a way to live that would satisfy them and be healthy for them, different than whatever random thing they're doing. Like, I think some people wouldn't even see that option even exists.
90% of our culture
misses it, right? So what's the dream body part? What was that?
Well, the dream body was a system developed by Dr. Arnold Mindell in Switzerland. He was a disciple or a student of Carl Jung's, and he was a physicist and a Jungian psychologist. And he found that if you tracked your body's different sensations and moods, you could then process that, and you wouldn't necessarily get sick, because your body dreams just like you dream. So as a dream is at night to your mind, a symptom in your body is to your body like a dream. So you're having a dream headache. So it's like, it's not just a headache, it's a dream, and it's a sensation. And so if you process that dream, it might turn into a picture, it might turn into a song, it might turn into something else, because it's just energy. But we've labeled it as a symptom, and we're a biomedical model that basically treats disease, and that's fine. But everything's labeled as disease or as a body symptom, not as a dream, not as something that may have meaning in it. One of the most freaky questions you can ask somebody when they're suffering is, what's right about it?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And like, just that alone sometimes will turn a person around. They'll go, oh, right, it's making me slow down. Oh, right, it's bringing me into my body. Oh, right, it's making me more humble. Oh, it's making me more relational. It's, etc. So it's not that everything's wrong. I mean, everything's meaningful. Everything's a dream. And so entering into the dream and dreaming it on further, like, suffering sucks. I mean, none of us want to be in pain. I'm not advocating pain, but pain is a sensation. And often if you take pain and go into the heart of that pain, there's a story, there's a song, there's a picture, there's a relationship conflict. I had a woman came to me with pelvic inflammatory disease so bad she was bedridden, and we found out that her PID was her relationship, and she proceeded to bring her husband to the next consultation with me and divorce him in front of me. And I went, oh my God. And her PID cleared up immediately.
Wow.
There. But the good news is they got back together again. They separated for a while, straightened out their relationship, and she got rid of her PID, and she got rid of her inflammatory relationship aspect. So that's what the dreaming body is. It's not just a deficiency of a vitamin or a pathogen that's making us sick. Those are legitimate causes of illness, but not always the single cause of them. Also, I treat systems theory. We are complex. We are open, nonlinear systems that fluctuate far from equilibrium, and we're super complex. We're not these simple little machines by any stretch of the imagination.
So when we get into this allopathic Western medicine that tries to make it these very simple little flow charts, it's just not anywhere close.
No, and those work for 25% of the problems that we have medically, and there are real diseases and there are real pharmaceuticals that help with those particular diseases. So it's a very legitimate system, but it does not deal very well with the 75% of chronic illnesses that most people suffer from, because those are more complex. They're more to do with lifestyle. They're more to do with diet. They're more to do with the things like I talk about relationship. Spirit. I ask people, what do you do to nourish your spirit? And sometimes they just get the blankest look of, duh, what do you mean? And it's like, what do you do to nourish your spirit? Oh, and then when they start thinking about that and start nourishing their spirit, their life changes. We're not just bodies.
Right. We're not. I think getting to that greater awareness helps people who are highly sensitive and gifted and overexcitable really see that some of the things they're picking up on, some of their intuitions, some of their senses that there's more is real. It's not, they're not making it up. I have some people that come to me and go, is this real? And I go, yes, it's all real. Yeah. It's okay. I said, and it's, follow where the light takes you, because, we all are curious beings a lot of times.
Well, I like with your podcast, someone gets me, like, and that's what I find my students, when they find me, they go, oh my God, someone gets me. Like, I've been the oddball in my family. I've been the oddball in my friends. I've been, I've believed all these things and I felt all these things, but nobody ever validated it. So, being validated for being sensitive, being validated for being aware, being validated for knowing there's a field, being validated for picking up other people's energies. Like dream body, one of the most dangerous things that sensitive people experience, that I used to experience all the time, is a process called dreaming up. And dreaming up is where there's some kind of energy in the field and somebody decides to pick it up, and it's usually an antagonist, right? And nobody wants to bring up the antagonist, but the sensitive goes, oh, I'll do it. And so it brings up this antagonist and everybody jumps down on the poor sensitive. But I was just picking up a position they don't realize. So when I learned that, it's like every time I get into a field and I'd feel this energy to do something that I didn't necessarily want to do, I go, no, let's wait and see if somebody else picks that up. And sure enough, somebody else would pick it up and I'd go, okay, that's good. It needed to be expressed, but I didn't need to be the one who expressed it because they're going to kill the messenger. So
wow, right. That is amazing, because I personally have done that, where I'm in a space and I feel the energy and I didn't know there was a name for it until you just said it. I didn't know there was a name for it, but I remember going, oh my, I'm not picking that up, or sometimes I feel it and go, is that mine or is it somebody else's? Like, whose is it? And I teach people, well, now I can tell the difference, but in the beginning, I didn't know. I just knew that it wasn't, I couldn't tell if it was mine or theirs. And then once I started being able to discern that part, then it was like, do I pick it up or not? And I didn't even know that was a thing, but that's true. That's real. It's very real, because sensitive people pick up the energy even if they want to pretend like they're not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. And then Arnold Mindell says that our greatest addiction is to normality. Everybody wants to be normal. He said there is no normal. In fact, there's a book on the averages I read that was amazing. And they created this woman in the 1940s called Norma. And she's supposed to be the normal woman. And they researched, a gynecologist and a sculptor created Norma, and it was in the mid 40s. And this was the kind of the normal woman. And they analyzed 50,000 women, and they couldn't find one woman who fit this normal woman. Like one woman had 5 out of the 8 traits that they had classified this. So this thing of normal is another one of those bad stories we've been told for too long, that there's this average.
Right. Well, I think there's a lot of benefit to being that oddball person or the different one in the family. And, like you were that in your family, I was that in my family. And a lot of people, I think, who are gifted and overexcitable, unless they're in a family of gifted overexcitable people who are actually honoring that path, then they feel like the odd person out sometimes, or they have to kind of explore a little to find their people, to find, their group, whatever that tribe is or that like-minded group is.
That's one of the wonderful things that I love about the internet. I mean, it's a challenge, but it's a really great place to filter and to find the people that, like, it takes a little bit of work, but I am now, like the 14 students that I have right now, all women, tend to attract women because of the soft art of herbs and nature, and healing tends to be more of a feminine art. But it's like, you find those people who are looking for that tribe of somebody. I'm sure it's the same with your work. Someone gets me. It's like, they know they're not fitting in with the tribe they're in. And so they're aware enough that they're searching, and then they see something that speaks to them. They go, oh, I'm going to go check that out. And then they go and check your website out, and they go, and they'll tell me, oh, I went over your website, with a fine tooth comb, and I read everything, and, it's taken me a year, but I'm ready to do it. And then when they do it, they love it because they're home. They're in their place. They're with their people. They're with other people. And I have friends that have done my very first course in 1986 of the particular hybrid that I've continued to develop into the online course now. And, one of the young men that came to my course when he was 18 years old back in 1986 is still a good friend of mine because we resonate. We're deep. We're sensitive, And same with lots of the women too that have came to study with me. They're still really, one woman comes to my wife and I put on an international shamanic workshop during the solstices and equinoxes. And there's this one woman, she comes to them all the time. She's been studying with me for 26 years, studying with us for 26 years. Because we get her.
Right. Yeah. It's like that like attracts like, and that's like that magnetic pull. That also raises both of you up, that all of you get raised up because as the energy keeps sharing and sharing and sharing, everybody in the group or both of you, like all three of you in that case, all get raised up. And how cool is that,
Yeah, no, that's very cool. That's another term that we use is consensual reality. And if you look at the biggest consensual reality, like the big culture we live in, it can be pretty weird in the sense that it doesn't support all these things you and I are talking about. But if we're in a group that supports our consensual reality and supports that we're sensitive, supports that we're gifted, supports that we can see things, feel things, hear things that other people can't, then that's a different reality, and it becomes validated. And it's like you're saying, well, I'm not crazy, I'm not overly sensitive. I'm sensitive. I'm highly sensitive, but I'm not overly. I'm just highly sensitive.
Right.
I'm overly sensitive to somebody who's dead, but it's like I'm not overly sensitive. I'm highly sensitive.
Right. And there is a qualitative difference between somebody who's overexcitable or highly sensitive and somebody who's oversensitive. And what we're speaking about is somebody who actually has an asynchronous brain development that is, because of their giftedness, is a qualitative difference in their sensitivity to things. So you can hear things, see things, smell things other people cannot. That's different than somebody who's overexcitable, who is taking a quote regular feeling or whatever and exaggerating it. That's another conversation. That's not what we're talking about. So I'm glad you said that so I could clear that up for the listeners. But an overexcitable, highly sensitive person has a different brain development and a different way. It's all atypical. So when we try to have a normal, there isn't one. But we live in a society that tries to make us fit into something that doesn't even exist. So it becomes this big, soup of mess that unless we find our people, a lot of people who excel get, imposter syndrome or start worrying about what's right or wrong about them. And then other people get, a lot of doubt and worry, like if people knew that I really saw this stuff or felt this way, then they would think I was crazy or whatever. It's part of the people who are here are, like we're the flag bearers. We're the ones bringing in and reminding, I think, humanity and the globe of what is, like the Ayurveda hasn't been around unbroken for this long by accident. There's no accident there. And when we honor the long traditions, like the trees you said that have been here hundreds of years, then there's more to what's going on than the little tiny reality that is in some cases trying to be imposed on us. So I think, that the highly sensitive and the overexcitable gifted people who are healers and teachers all in one, I think, we're all the ones that are here on purpose, with that purpose to make sure that the art of this level of understanding not only is alive, but flourishes, which is why I think you teaching these courses is very, very amazing and powerful, and you're doing a huge service.
Well, it really touches me because I think that, I don't know if this is true for other gifted people, but for myself, I have an insatiable curiosity and intelligence. Like I can devour books and videos and teachers like they're going out of style, because, and it's just the way, the nature of who I am. And I feel like that too, like when I take these people that find me and I take them down these incredible complex pathways like systems theory and the extracellular matrix and Ayurveda, they're very I mean, it's a 5-year program in India to become an Ayurvedic doctor. They're very complex systems, but they just love it. And I guess what touches me is, and also I do a lot of learning how to learn and sharing that with my students. And I think that's one of the things that this kind of a field offers is just, you can learn and learn and learn and learn and learn and never stop learning. And I think for a gifted person, I could be wrong, but the way you're describing it, to me, that was the gift. And that was one of the reasons I chose the field I chose, because I knew I would never get to the end of it. I wasn't going to ever graduate or, run out of, and I'm as active today as, like you told you, I was up at 5:30 this morning writing and, and I think that's one of the things that you offer, I believe, is just helping people see that. And that's, I'm a great believer that when people find their passion, whatever that is, that's a godsend, especially if they're a gifted person, because they got all this energy, all this intensity. And if they have nowhere to put it, they're dangerous to themselves and possibly others.
That's true. That's very true. That giftedness and that drive and that thirst has to be answered, or, a lot of the times a gifted person will, I call it going south. They get in trouble. Yeah. And that's not the goal here. The goal here is to see that what is gifted about us and maybe seen as a challenge by someone else is really a gift, is really an asset. And if we align with it and we nourish it and we follow it, then we're fulfilled and we're of beneficial presence to the world. Whatever that looks like, whether it, like about 3 years ago, I live on a 1/4 acre, kind of in a pretty big city, and this is an area where we have bigger lots than everywhere else. Now it's all way compressed, right? But everything on my property is edible, and it's completely organic. There's no toxic anything anywhere. And a lot of people look at me funny, and I got in a car accident, so not as much is getting harvested now as it used to, because I couldn't for a while. But I decided that's what I was going to do in my little piece of the world. And it's wonderful because I walk outside and my pomegranate tree is right outside my front door. And it reminds me that, Mother Earth is taking care of all of us, and that's my little spot. And I think that all of us in our little spots are making a big spot, and connecting, and like the internet's connecting us, and in a way that we can be that beneficial presence. All of us gifted, sensitive people can actually show up in a positive way. And like, we're the ones we've been looking for.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a good, thing for any gifted person, is to grow things and to have them right in their environment and to connect with nature that way. So I also walk outside my office into, I live in the forest now, and I live with the trees themselves, and I live in a straw bale home has clay on the walls and has repurposed wood on the floor, and has all the posts that are in my home are on this land with trees that we reused. And, and there's just something magical about that. I just sit in my house all the time, just feeling both inspired and relaxed in a sense, because it's all natural materials and the walls breathe. So if I was to bring 30 people into my living room and put a computer on the wall and measure the moisture, it would pick up 30 liters of water while all the people were there visiting. And after they left, it would release that 30 liters of water, because the clay absorbs water and lets it go, absorbs water and lets it go. So it's like you have this living, breathing, reactive house.
Nice. Oh my word. That is so cool.
It is cool.
I'm coming to visit.
Yeah, you should.
Diagonally across North America, I'm on my way. No, that to me, I think most gifted people would get into that, because it's real and it's tangible, and it brings us into all of it, like connects everything.
Well, my wife looked at her old journals, and 30 years ago we had written that we were going to live in one. So took us a while, but we made it.
You did it. You created it, and that's a beautiful. How wonderful is that? You need to come
to one of our international shamanic workshops. I think that's what you'd love.
Oh yes, that would be really fun. So I want everybody to know about how to contact you,
Yeah.
And so if you could say like how you would like to be contacted if anybody's listening to this show and would like to learn more about you and maybe take your course or come visit you or come to one of your workshops, how can people learn more about Don Ollsin?
Well, grassrootsherbalism.com and Grassroots Herbalism Facebook page are probably the best ways, because there we'll have the email contact, even my phone number will be on the website. And Grassroots Herbalism will have lots of posts and activities of what we're involved with right now. So I think that's the best way for people because then I'll be posting. The latest thing we're doing, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is doing these joint venture webinars like you and I did. So I've got one coming up on medicinal mushrooms, and I got one coming up on healing trees. So that's a great way for people to get a taste of what I do. And then if they want to go further, I have the online course, which is a 12-week intensive that is a foundational course for my Herbal mentorship program. So if people like that, then they can sign up for my mentorship program and join the other group of people who want to go deeper into the study of herbalism and potentially work with other people and help them. And then I will supervise that along with the other mentees. And so they'll develop their body of knowledge and their practice along with some other people.
Oh, that's amazing. So there's a whole wide range of things that people can do. And you're also a published author, right?
Yeah. Pathways to Healing, A Guide to Herbs, Ayurveda, Dream Body, and Shamanism. So that, again, is on my website. It's also at Amazon. I have a book on medicine making, create your own medicines at home. I have a book on Ayurveda, I think I'm not sure. After my Kindle books, I've got to revisit it. But anyways, Pathways to Healing is my main book. And I'm working on some other ones right now.
That's awesome. So you're just creating and really making.
I can't stop creating. I'm just like, the energy right now is just unbelievable living in this house. And like I said, I woke up at 5:30 this morning and I'm working with a writing coach, one of the women in our group Rochelle. And anyways, so yeah.
That's wonderful. So everybody, you can contact Don at grassrootsherbalism.com. I will make sure all of his contact information, including his Facebook page and his website, are in the show notes. And make sure when you contact him, you let him know that you heard this interview on the Someone Gets Me podcast, so he knows how far he's reaching from his wonderful straw house in the forest in Canada. How cool is that, right? So thank you very much for listening, and we will hear some more from Don. In the meantime, don't forget to keep your face toward the sun so the shadows fall behind you. We'll see you next time.
Are you tired of searching for someone who understands you? Join our Facebook group, Someone Gets Me. In this group, you will be able to connect with others who are intense, sensitive, smart, talented, and wanting to be understood. Diane shares her insights and teachings, and you can connect with others. Join today.